Good evening. This is News.PH, but it's not politics as usual. I'm Pia Ontiveros. There cannot be any progress if our mass transport system is failing us. The Metro Rail Transit is a big part of the system, but the accidents, engulfing, and problems hounding it might just be a little bit too much for Metro Manila's 12 million residents. Joining us in this first segment is the spokesman of the Department of Transportation and Communications, Attorney Michael Sagcal, and Tonyo Cruz, a very outspoken critic of the MRT and many other things, both online and on camera. Good evening, Attorney Migs and Tonyo. Tonyo, wait, you are one of a member of one of those networks, right?
Yes, I support the Train Riders Network,
okay,
but also of Riles.
What is the difference? Very quickly lang.
Well, the Riles was formed by workers, working class Metro Manila residents,
Okay.
while the Train Riders Network, mostly students and young professionals. But they share a common view that we should have a modern transport system, one that's reliable, dependable, future-proof, and affordable.
Meaning tatagal.
Metro Manila is one of the biggest metropolis in the world. So we don't deserve a tiny MRT.
Right. I agree with you completely.
It's an original sin of the MRT Corporation that they planned a very tiny, small, minuscule MRT system for EDSA. It's actually the smallest among the three. And it's like a planned obsolescence on the part of the MRTC. Na binulok nila yan for the past 13 years, I think. And there's no room for expansion. There's no room for bigger trains.
Yeah.
The stations are so small for our population in the metro.
Yeah.
So it was a problem waiting to explode.
Right. And it's exploding right now. But that is also something that government should have. Government meaning all these administrations, no, that should have taken care of, diba?
Yes, but the problem is our government is either incompetent or is a total sellout. For example, from the very beginning, the MRTC invested only $190 million US.
Okay.
And then the government, through a sovereign guarantee, added close to $500 million.
Yeah. Okay. Tonyo,
It's a BLT scheme.
BLT.
So, build, lease, and transfer. So, the total cost dun sa buong duration ng contract with the MRTC is so big, like $2.3 billion US.
Okay, we've gotten a little bit ahead of ourselves, no? But you take the MRT every day?
Yes.
From what point to what point?
Either from North Avenue or Quezon Avenue to Ayala or Buendia. So it's a
And how long is your ride?
maybe 20 minutes, 20 to 30 minutes, depending on the stops.
Yeah.
Sometimes there are delays in the stops.
Yeah, and to line up?
Well, it depends. For example, the Quezon Avenue station is one of the most congested stations, but a tiny station at that. And it will take you 30 minutes to an hour to get to a train.
To get on the train.
On the platform.
On the platform.
During rush hour. And the lines would snake all around the station.
Yeah.
And sometimes reach your former home.
Yeah. Okay. How do you feel when you ride? Do you feel safe, or do you feel that I am going to get to my destination?
There's no other choice. A certain June Abaya said that it's a personal choice, riding the MRT, but that's really a very insensitive statement coming from the DOTC secretary, because you have no choice.
We have no choice. You either ride the MRT or you ride the bus.
Or you ride the bus.
Or a private car.
Or get on a taxi.
Or a taxi. Okay. Let's talk to the spokesman of that certain Secretary June Abaya, Mig Sagcal. Migs, do you take the MRT?
Not often. I take it very rarely. But
very rarely when? What?
Once every.
Why?
When it's convenient, but again, like Tonyo pointed out, it's more often than not probably not convenient. Congestion, long lines, and all. So it's what makes most sense to me if I want to get to another destination quickly. Very infrequently does it end up being the MRT.
Okay. What are we going to do about the MRT? Are you going to shut it down or what? Are you going to repair it overnight or?
There are no.
Ano ba talaga ang plano?
Yeah. Well, the plans.
And
really,
what is the implementation plan? Because you know, ang mahirap sa Pinoy, we like to plan, and we like to study. We never really do anything, di ba?
Yeah. Well, most of the projects are already underway. The MRT is so old, the system. It's 15 years. And it hasn't been very well maintained. So there's a host of different components that need upgrading or rehabilitation. One of them we've already started we purchased the additional trains which will address the long lines. That's on the way. While that's ongoing, we're also rehabilitating the signaling system. We're replacing the rails. We're building ancillary systems to expand the capacity to the extent that it can be to the extent that it can be improved. Most of these projects should be completed within 2015.
2015?
Yes.
In the meantime, what is our guarantee that when our children or our family members, relatives, friends ride the MRT, that nothing is going to happen?
We have to rely on our technical experts on the ground.
What do you mean by that?
Well, it's their recommendation. I mean,
who are the technical experts?
Well, you have personnel from MRT-3, employees of MRT-3, you have maintenance contractor. Every now and then you have audit personnel conducting an audit of the line.
Yeah.
And as long as they are able to assess that the line is still safe, despite all the glitches, despite all the recent complications in the system, then we can continue running the MRT. Because it comes down to a balancing act, whether you're able to serve the demand, and there's still a very high number of riders.
Yeah, no question about that.
Without compromising safety. So it's really the safety aspect that will determine whether or not we need to stop operations.
Yeah, but that's total blackmail. From 2010 to 2014, there have been like 8,000 hours available to the MRT, to the DOTC, to the MRT Corporation to maintain the tracks.
Those 8,000 hours. Yung night,
every night.
early morning,
every night.
no? What time does it stop operating? 10:30, 11, di ba? 11 hanggang
5.
the next morning, 5 a.m. So total of 6 hours every night.
6 hours every night, 8,000 hours total under the Aquino administration. And they totally wasted it. It's as if all of a sudden the DOTC discovered, or the MRT Corporation, if they are indeed involved in managing it, they all of a sudden discovered that, we need to maintain the trains. We need to maintain the tracks. But they never did anything meaningful from 2010 to 2014. It's a total betrayal of public trust. They waited for the APT, the maintenance contractor, to preside over the most brutal accident to happen before they took action. And then right now, they are floating this shutdown.
Yeah.
What's their plan for Metro Manila? Chaos?
Yeah.
They're planning total chaos.
They're
not even talking about a partial shutdown. They're talking about the total line to be shut down.
Yeah.
At the same time that they are trying to float the idea of a fare hike.
Okay.
So I think it's a blackmail on the part of the DOTC, and whoever this character is floating this total shutdown thing, in order to force the commuters to accept a fare hike, which we don't have any assurance, even under the contracts, that the proceeds from any fare hike will
result in a better
Yes.
system. Okay, Migs, answer muna the point that Tonyo raised that during the hours that MRT was not operating, hindi nag-maintenance.
That's...
Diba usually
I think
that is the common sense approach, hindi ba?
Yeah, I think Tonyo was referring to probably longer term solutions maintenance works. Because every night from 12 midnight to 4 a.m., actual maintenance works are done. And it's not easy to maintain a rail system. It's quite complicated. So every evening, you have engineers working on the wheels, working on the actual trains themselves, the engines. It's not true that nothing was done. I guess it's not, obviously. Yes.
From 12 midnight to 4 a.m.
Yes, those are
something's going on.
Yes, those are the maintenance hours.
MRT3 is the most expensive to maintain under the the rail system in Metro Manila, our expense for LRT1 is around 35 million. For LRT2 is 25 million. 100 million, we spend 100 million for the MRT3. And what do we get from it? The most cramped, the most unreliable train system.
Yeah.
The commuter's point is, okay, you're paying the MRT Corporation this much money. Okay, you already bid out like a 685 million peso maintenance contract, but why do we have this kind of trash, this sardine cans of trains or wagons operating in the main artery of Metro Manila? It's a symbol of the DOTC. It's incompetence and sellout.
Migs, can you respond to that?
Yeah, I'll have to respond to three things that Tonyo said. No, I respect his opinion, obviously, but blackmail, sellout, incompetence, they're a bit too strong. I understand the point
So
of commuters.
what is the not too strong term? Kung hindi blackmail.
Well, I'm not going to give the answer to that. But
what would best describe what is going on?
well, I'd say it's delayed.
Huh?
Everything's delayed. I mean, I can
Everything's
admit to that.
delayed.
Well, yes. For instance, the trains. The 48 new trains that we purchased, they should have been purchased 10 years ago, 2004.
Okay, wait. In other words, you're saying na kasalanan ng past administration.
No, I don't want to point fingers.
2004, obviously, that hindi sakop ng Noynoy Aquino administration. So you're saying, kasalanan ng past administration. They did
Kasalanan
not
ng
do
private
what they
owner.
should have done.
It should have been done by the private owner, actually,
Okay.
MRTC.
Okay, and then?
You have cycles for all these upgrades. Some of them would be every 6 years, some of them would be every 8 years.
So hindi ginawa.
Hindi ginawa, or they weren't done satisfactorily.
Okay, so what are you saying again? That it is not the fault of this current administration?
Well, we also have a fault, also in the delays, because like Tonyo pointed out, we could have done them earlier. Like, for instance, if I'm not mistaken, the train overhauling is every 8 years. We're right around the end of the 8 years, and we're starting it now.
So why didn't you do it earlier?
There's so many projects that should have been done, and it's lined up, it's programmed.
Yeah, so why wasn't it attended to?
Well, the programming, the trains should have been purchased, the new trains, because it takes the longest to build the new trains. So you program each project one after the other. And there was a delay in the purchasing of the trains because we were sued by, of all companies, MRT-H, MRT Holdings, which owns MRTC, for doing the work that they should have done.
Okay, can you address yung shutdown, no? The possibility of a shutdown?
So far, there's no serious recommendation about that. I think there was a question on whether it could come to that. What happens if safety is compromised? What happens if there are no more rails left? And the answer was, it's a possibility, but there's no serious recommendation.
Okay, so when you say no serious recommendation, because Abby Valter was saying we're waiting for June Abaya to make a recommendation. So now, pag-aaralan. Ganun ba yun?
Well, it will be started, or the starting point will be a recommendation from the safety experts, your engineers on the ground, saying, okay, we need to do maintenance works and we can't do it during the midnight.
Okay, so how long is that going to take?
The maintenance works.
No, how long is it going to take for the engineers on the ground to tell you guys in the DOTC building that, you know what, we will need to shut down for a while or whatever it is to make sure that safety is not compromised?
It will depend on the situation of the rails, of the whole system on the ground.
So, yun na nga, how long will it take? I mean,
it's not a matter of time. It's more a matter of the situation of the.
It's not a
system.
matter of time.
Yes.
So, in other words, what are we looking at? The possibility of another accident or what?
No, we're not. We obviously, that's what we're avoiding. We're avoiding any more accidents. But if the signaling system stops working tonight, then obviously we can't run the trains.
But Pia, there's another aspect that is key to the safety issue: accountability. There's no accountability. Nobody resigned. Nobody was fired after the accident. And the absence of accountability reinforces the mindset of the public that, are we safe? Nobody was held to account for this accident. Secretary Abaya is investigating himself, recommending what to do for an accident that happened under his watch. He should have resigned out of delicadeza, or the president could have let him go and do something else.
Migs, was there action taken?
Well, there's an investigation. I think there should be cases being filed against the drivers who were found to
The
have.
drivers.
Yes, they didn't
The
follow
train
the
drivers.
protocols. Yes, that's right.
And there's no checks on the company that was in charge of the maintenance during that time, APT. APT should have been held accountable. But, but all of a sudden, it's just a photo of the drivers.
Yeah, okay.
It's as if, again, nagtutumbahan na yung arguments ng government about maintenance eh.
Mix, are you... can the DOTC assure us that there will be no accidents in the future, that the MRT is safe to ride?
Okay, we can't promise that there won't be accidents. We're humans, but that it's safe.
You're human?
So yes, we are. I don't know how to take that, but yes.
I know,
we can't predict. We can't predict.
I'm not saying you're not human. What I'm saying is that's not very comforting to the riding public. You know,
I think the MRT would be the first train system to say that. The DOTC would be the first agency in the world to say that.
No,
that
Tonyo,
they cannot ensure the safety of the riding public. No, transport agency would say that.
I obviously didn't say that. That's a clear misclaim on your part.
You should say to the public, you are safe when you ride the MRT. But you say that.
We have been saying that it is still safe. It remains safe.
Just a while ago you said you're not sure.
I was referring to accidents. We can't. Accidents meaning a glitch. The signaling system stops working. The train stopped for 15 minutes. I can't promise that, but we can promise that as long as we run the MRT, as long as we leave it open to the public, it is a safe system to ride.
It is a safe system in spite of the accidents, the overshooting, the defective rail,
that's the first thing we looked into.
The safety track.
Yes, that's the first thing we looked into when the accident happened. Is it still safe? Because we would have stopped operations right away, immediately, once it happened.
So it's still safe in spite of the accident?
Yes. It is.
It's still safe in spite of the fact that we need new trains, that you need to do real upgrading, etc.
Yes, there are experts on these who, both from MRT, both from audit personnel who come over every now and then, from the maintenance contractors. You have these systems that exist and run. They may be obsolete, they may be old, but they still function to meet the needs right now. Like the signaling system, which is what detects when there's a breakage in the rail. The fact that we're able to see it and replace it in time means that the system is still working.
That audit expert, ano yun, independent expert ba yan?
The last one was an independent expert, procured by MRTC, the MTR of Hong Kong, a very well-reputed rail operator, came over and they did an audit of the whole line. Before that, it's the same findings that we have at DOTC, which is, I haven't received the actual results, but the initial findings supposedly that have been relayed to me. Summary is what I've been saying. The system remains safe, but we need to do all the upgrades immediately, and that's what we're doing.
Is this a pache system or what?
No, any rail system in the world, they have all these the standard operating procedures when some kind of issue happens with the system.
Okay, you'll join us later on in the last part of the show, but before I let you go in this first segment, I need to ask you, Mix, is the government fulfilling or abdicating on its mandate to provide an efficient mass transit system for Metro Manila?
We are fulfilling it. Unfortunately, it can't be felt today. Like I've mentioned
that
already.
Hurts.
It
really
does.
Hurts.
It does. But that's the reality that we have. That's the reality that we're facing. We have to be honest. We want to make reforms overnight, but we can't do it. It can't be overnight. If you want a system that will be future-proof, you have to plan it well, you have to execute it well. You can't do it overnight, because if you do it overnight, then in a matter of a few years, you'll have the same problem. That's why the DOTC has to focus on long-term solutions.
Tonyo, a brief reply from you. Then you go.
We would understand that way of thinking if the government said that in 2010. But we're already
at the beginning of the administration.
At the beginning of the administration, okay, in the next 6 years, we will fix the MRT, the LRT. We'll have a more modern transportation system. But it's already 2014.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Migs and Tonyo. You'll join us in the last segment of the show. We'll take a short break. Please stay with us. News.PH will be right back.
Wait.
Welcome back to News.PH. I'm Pion Tiveros. Let's step back from the MRT problem and see the bigger, wider picture. Former Transportation Undersecretary Primitivo is with us today. He was with DOTC during the administration of President Fidel V. Ramos. Dr. Cal is the Executive Director of the UP Planning and Development Research Foundation. He'll help us get a better perspective of what we're up against. Good evening, Dr. Cal. Thank you very much for being here.
Good evening.
Sir, on September 10, you delivered a talk at the 5th Philippine Economic Policy Seminar. The talk was entitled History of Transportation Planning and Development in Metro Manila. It's always very good to look back at history para nakikita natin saan ba tayo nanggaling. But two points first, sir. Is it correct to say that if you plan well and execute, progress comes? But if you don't plan well or plan badly and then execute, progress is impeded? Is that correct?
That's correct. But in our case, the planning, there is no shortage of planning studies. It's just the gap between planning and implementation.
And implementation, okay. Can you say in one sentence, bakit ganoon? And it's not just for the mass transport system, it's for many other things. That why is there always a gap between planning and implementation?
One sentence, lack of funding and lack of absorptive capacity, meaning capacity of the agencies to implement the plans.
Okay, capacity of the agencies, but that is why we have all these government agencies, hindi ba?
Kaya nga.
Lacking
of capability and capacity to implement these programs.
They don't really know what they're doing. What is it? What do you mean by that?
Systems, people.
We don't have the right people in place, ganon?
There's lacking in capacity.
Lacking in capacity.
But
that's not a very comforting
programs.
thought, because if we talk about the mass transit system and then you tell us lacking in capacity, yung mga taong dapat...
No, I'm talking about the history why we have this wide gap between planning and implementation.
Okay, but for the mass...
I think my paper shows several studies, no shortage of studies.
Okay.
But then my paper also has shown that only very few of these recommended programs and projects have been implemented.
Yeah. So I fully understand, and I really we know that na talagang no shortage of studies, no. Pero bakit palaging halimbawa kapag pag-uusapan yung shutdown ng MRT or any other problem, any other problem, no, palagi na lang ang sasabihin pag-aaralan po natin, we're going to study that. And yet we have no shortage of studies. Why? Bakit ang hilig-hilig ng Pinoy sa pag-aralan natin?
People, management, no? So we should have the right people in our departments.
Dr. Cal, let's go to the talk you delivered last September 10. I'm sure it's a compilation of everything you've been saying all these years. You go through the entire history and the length and breadth of the transportation system in Metro Manila. Can we go through it as quickly as possible? You talk about the urban transportation system. You talk about components and modes, for private, public, and freight transport. On
That's
paper,
correct,
looking at the PowerPoint presentation, it looks really good, no? It's like, this is what it should be like. But this is not exactly what it is like on the ground.
Correct.
Why is that, sir?
Because of the gap between planning studies and implementation. Many of the programs and projects implemented in these studies have not been implemented.
Okay. Can you tell us very briefly, just enumerate, ano po yung mga programs and studies?
As early as 1945, we already
Major
had
Thoroughfares Plan.
Major Thoroughfare Plan. Yeah, you are familiar with that. The recommendation for a radial circumferential road network in Metro Manila, and we have actually maintained the same plan, but until now, that's 1945. But until now, there are missing gaps in the in this network.
Yeah.
For example, C3 is not complete.
So, hindi na kumpleto.
Hindi na kumpleto. May mga missing portions of the roads, di ba?
Okay. And why is that so?
That's the big question. And I have not gone really in detail the reasons for non-implementation, but in my experience, it has something to do with funding and the capacity of the departments to implement the plans.
Okay. Do we also have a problem with growing other urban centers? Parang decentralizing so that people don't come to Metro Manila.
Yes, that's
Which contributes to
in fact,
this
that's what we are
problem.
promoting. What in the School of Urban and Regional Planning, we are saying that we should also manage urban growth because urbanization is inevitable, but we ensure that the urban growth in the country is distributed across the urban centers, so that Metro Manila will not continue to attract people from the provinces.
Okay. Sir, you talked about the missing links in the circumferential road plans. There are other major road projects that were in the pipeline na hindi rin natuloy. Ano po yung mga yon na kailangan, what are those major road networks that should have been built?
And the priority one is, of course, the connection of NLEX to SLEX. This should have been done earlier, but of course, fortunately, this is very much in the pipeline. So that's another. Another one is C5, again completing C5, and a new one, C6. The C6, this is even outer than C5, and this would help, no? But you would note from the paper that these projects, road improvement projects plus mass transit improvement projects, are very much in the what so-called dream plan.
Dream plan.
Yes.
Dream plan of what? Can you describe it to us?
This is a word coined by the study team that has completed the roadmap for transport infrastructure development for Metro Manila and neighboring areas. That has produced a plan that would entail an investment of $60 billion up to 2030.
What do we do, sir? Let's jump for a while to MRT, which is a big part of the mass transit system. What do we do about the MRT now?
MRT-3.
MRT-3, sorry, yes.
Of course, we know that the immediate concern is to improve its repair and maintenance because, you know, we have incidents, latest accidents. And it's really very, very important that we have to undertake major repair and maintenance for MRT-3.
Immediate repair and maintenance. But is it safe to ride?
Mass transit, rail mass transit system is relatively safe as experienced worldwide.
As experienced worldwide. No, but what I'm talking about MRT-3.
MRT-3 right now is a serious maintenance problem, so we have to deal with this.
So if you were talking to a parent whose child takes the MRT once in a while, would you recommend, yes, go ahead, let your child take the MRT?
I would be careful. Because,
you would be careful?
Yes.
I'm going to think very, very, very well about that. We'll take a short break. Dr. Primitivo Cal is still going to be with us when we come back. News.PH will be right back. Welcome back to News.PH. I'm Pia Ontiveros. Still with us, former Transportation Undersecretary Primitivo Cal. Dr. Cal, between the dream plan and what we envisioned for the mass transit system for Metro Manila, including MRT-3 and so many other components, and what we actually have on the ground, what is the gap?
Worth $60 billion
worth
US dollars
$60 billion US
up to
dollars
2030.
worth. That is like on a scale of 1 to 10. Ano yung gap doon, sir? Is it 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10?
6 siguro.
6. Okay. Is that something that we should be comfortable with?
No, it's something that tells us to act seriously on these problems. I mean, we experience this every day. Severe traffic congestion,
Yes.
environmental pollution.
Yes. Oh, konting downpour, baha,
Konting downpour,
traffic.
baha, you know. So we really have, it's a serious problem. Yeah.
Okay. So, kanina I was asking you if we should shut down the MRT. Should we shut it down already? What do we do about MRT? Do we shut it down?
I do not have the info, but I
Yeah.
know that there has been an audit of the system. So I defer to the audit team. Now, if it is considered that, I mean, trade-off between, of course, inconvenience and lack of transport for our commuters, safety is a primary consideration. So if it has to be shut down, then we have to do it.
Okay. And if it has to be shut down, where do the 500,000 passengers go?
The alternative, of course, is bus services, right?
Okay. But we don't have that.
No, we have that.
No, but it's like it's a huge problem on its own.
Actually, because of EDSA, the traffic congestion, right? But there are reports, and we have validated this earlier in a survey, that there is a surplus of buses along EDSA. I do not know if this is, by the way, still the case, because MMDA has launched a campaign of enforcing against colorum operation.
Okay.
But some 2012 survey indicated that there was a surplus of 1,000 buses.
Really?
And
Okay.
these 1,000 buses could accommodate the passengers that would be
that are
yes,
taking MRT3.
yes.
Okay, but I remember the downpour. What was that? Like 2 weeks ago, rush hour until the evening hours, and I remember that along EDSA, people were walking on EDSA, not just on the sidewalks but on the street already, trying to get a ride, trying to find buses to ride, and these were people who were displaced and they couldn't get a ride. So
Yeah.
where are the? So
It's
where
not a
are
good alternative,
Yeah, so where are the
especially
buses?
during rainy seasons. Yeah.
So para bang ang inimagine ko kasi these people, let's say yung mga taong yun yung madi-displace kung ma-shutdown ng
Yes.
MRT. So saan sila mapupunta?
Yes.
But if you say that there are an extra 1,000 buses, so why were people on the streets that time?
Dahil of another problem because of flooding, di ba?
Yeah. But then, I mean, mataas naman ang mga ano bang problema natin?
Malaking problema.
Malaking problema. Kanina you said, sir, the gap of $60 billion.
Yes.
Is it as simple as finding the money to fill that gap?
Fortunately, this time, because I asked the consulting firm, do you have this kind of money? Both coming from, let's say, from the private and public sector. The answer is yes, that we could afford. We actually could, we would have the funds to implement this program up to 2030. In other words,
Up to 2013?
Yeah, 30.
30,
That's
okay.
that's the timeline for the
Okay.
implementation of this
Okay.
dream plan. So the firm has analyzed our financial capability to implement the program, and I was informed that it's positive that we would have the funds to implement this program.
Okay. So we have the funds to implement this program. Ano pa bang kulang?
Ang kulang is that we have to ensure that the departments that are mandated to implement the program, the various agencies, are equipped, are capable of implementing the program. So we need to implement capacity building program.
Capacity building program, meaning
Of the
ensuring
agencies.
the
Yes.
personnel in those
Yes.
agencies can actually implement
Yes.
what we need implemented.
That's correct.
Okay. So when you say capacity building program, like you said earlier, medyo kulang, there is a lack of capacity.
Yes.
So paano yun? Anong mangyayari sa atin?
No. That's why we have to implement a capacity building program. Anyway, this the $60 billion program that I mentioned is up to 2030. So the government should put priority to strengthening our agencies.
Okay. Sir, apart from the gap between planning and
And
the vision
implementation.
and the actual implementation, what else is our problem? Why haven't we been able to build an efficient mass transport system for Metro Manila?
I cannot cite any other reason really.
Okay.
Because the plans exist and it's found to be viable, and yet many of the programs have not been implemented. I could only cite really these two factors,
Okay.
funding and absorptive capacity of the agencies to implement.
Okay, my final question for this segment, sir. President Aquino has less than 2 years to go, no? So, always in the last years of an administration, ang pinag-uusapan, legacy, what will this president do in his or her last years in office? Kaya pa bang gawa ng paraan ni President Aquino ang problema ng mass transit system dito sa Metro Manila? Can President Aquino still do something in his less than last 2 years in office?
Yes, more than a year pa, so that it can be improved. But not the full program, because
Yes.
of course it would take years to develop the other lines. I'm talking about making sure that MRT-3 is properly, maintained.
Yeah.
And then we have another line, line 7 is very important. So it's a committed project. So we should now go ahead and start implementing line 7.
Okay. Thank you very much for joining us, Dr. Primitivo Cal. You'll join us in the last segment together with Tonyo, Cruz, and Sagcal. We'll take a short break. Please stay with us. News.PH will be right back. Welcome back. You're still watching News.PH. I'm Pio Ontiveros. Still with us, former Transportation Undersecretary Dr. Primitivo Cal, spokesman of the DOTC, Sagcal, and Tonyo Cruz, critic, critic of the MRT. Okay, Tonyo, listening to what Dr. Primitivo Cal was saying a while ago, and also you, Sagcal, give us a response first to that.
I agree that we have a wealth of plans, great plans for transportation, communications, public works. And everybody supports those plans because transportation, at the core of it, you are right, at the opening of the program, it's the enabler of workers or students, employees, even of government officials. So we could reach our office, our schools quickly and
in
affordably.
one piece.
Yeah, in one piece. But it doesn't happen. And it costs hardship every single day. A worker who's employed in Makati but lives in Cavite would have to leave very early. There's a total waste of man hours. Dapat nga meron ng course, merong extra credit sa college Warrior. Transportation warrior for the
Transportation
students.
warrior.
Like 12 units, 3 units per semester per year.
It's an education in itself, no? Just
Yes.
to travel Metro
And
Manila. Oh.
I think we as taxpayers, everybody, expect something from the government. Like, do something for the transportation, for public transportation. It's not enough that we have an MRT. The MRT must be quick, must be safe, and always affordable. And if there's no accountability, regarding the failure to deliver such an MRT, there would be problems. There's a total lack of accountability. I think it stems from the fact that we have officials who do not know the lives of our people, the lives of students and common people, the daily sacrifice that we do just to go to the office or go to school. It's a huge daily sacrifice. And the least that the government could do is to make that travel time easy. But the government is not doing anything. And we would hear spokespersons, not you, spokespersons like Secretary Coloma said, maraming bus, mag-bus kayo. There's hindi nga lang total lack of empathy, a total disrespect for the Filipino. Like, okay, bahala na kayo dyan. Hintayin nyo na lang yung bagong bagod. Bahala kayo. So
Okay.
as long as we don't have a leadership that is visionary, that cares for the public, takes care of us, not like a parent, but a leader. That, okay, our MRT is stinks. We must fix it, and we will do what we can in the window of opportunity that we have.
Okay. Mig, Sagcal.
Yeah, I agree. There are a lot of great plans.
You agree with Tonyo?
With the plans. No, I agree with the fact that there
Okay,
have been plans. In fact, a lot of these plans. If some people are wondering why there's an MRT 7 without an MRT 4, 5, 6, the plans have them. They weren't implemented since the 90s. It's a matter of
Since the
getting them.
90s. O ngayon, kanino naman kasalanan yan?
No, I'm saying it really, it's a disappointment to everyone. Government officials or private citizens alike. We all want a better transport system. I understand how some people look at the opportunity to make these happen within a single term. But that's not really the priority of the DOTC, to fit it in within one term. We want a long-term solution, and the goal is not to just get something done at the
Yeah, but long-term solution doesn't mean that you're not going to do anything about
That's
it at
true.
the start of your term, not
That's true.
2010.
That's why you have
That
agencies.
is your duty.
That's true. That's why there are government agencies who are in charge of the day-to-day operations. You have, for instance, the MRT-3 system, the LRTA, who run the rail systems. But we're not saying we don't have accountability, that like Tonyo has that impression. We do answer to the public. That's why we're here. That's why we continuously try to do the projects.
Answering to the public is, you interpret that as coming to a TV show and explaining.
No, I'm not
That-
referring to.
that is-
No, I'm not referring to appearing on a TV show. I'm referring to doing the work that we have to do. And if there are criticisms, we listen to them. We try to take that constructively and try to find the solutions. Unfortunately, like we've said, we're not looking at 6 years to do all the reforms across all transportation sectors. That's a very broad industry. That, if much as we want to do it, like I said earlier, much as we want to do it in a matter of 3-4 years,
Yeah.
you have to do it right. You have
Yeah.
to you have to make those plans right, and it can't be done in a few years.
But you could have started at 2010, di ba?
There were some programs that were started in 2010. There are a lot of others that could have been started in 2010. That's why we admit that there have been delays. That's part of accountability. But that doesn't stop us from saying, okay, we just have 2 years to go. We're not going to do anything anymore. That's obviously the wrong attitude towards it. Regardless of whether we finish it within 2016, we will do the projects. We will make all the reforms necessary, because it's for the benefit of the people. It's not for the benefit of any single administration.
Okay. A while ago, I was asking Dr. Cal, and I'll just paraphrase, if he would recommend to a parent, halimbawa, na sige, okay lang, pasakayin mo yung anak mo dun sa MRT, and he said he would be, and I paraphrase your reply, sir, you would be very careful in that, and that doesn't sound comforting to me.
Well, as we've
Because
said,
my kids take MRT.
I understand. I mean, the concern is for everybody who takes the MRT, and the safety processes that we've mentioned happen every day. There's regular checks. Again, we said we will not compromise safety. That's why there was this talk floated by Tonyo about there being possible shutdown.
No, it wasn't floated by Tonyo.
I mean, mentioned in the show by Tonyo. Yeah. We didn't go for. We're not saying we need to shut down now, but we said we will not compromise safety. And if that entails shutting down, then that could happen. But we don't want to. We don't have any plans to do so. As long as we can maintain it.
Yeah.
By the way,
Yes, sir.
may I just qualify
Yes,
that?
yes.
Let's remember that there are other 2 lines, lines 1 and 2.
Yes.
And they are okay.
Yes.
They are being run
Government
by
run.
Yes, but-
Light Rail Transit Authority.
Government
and
run.
Government run. I'm mentioning that because my other point is that I'm really surprised why DOTC itself, which is a department which should be concentrating on major policy making and strategic planning, is directly implementing, directly operating a system. Why not let LRTA, that has a good track record, to operate it with good experience? So, my daughter, by the way, rides line 1.
Okay.
Yeah, this is the BLT agreement that was referred to earlier. Under that agreement, MRTC puts up the system, DOTC leases it. And so that part of that is operations. But we have already been working on the buyout, where government will own the system. We have to buy out the MRTC for that. and that's in the works. There's an arbitration case in Singapore, again, that we have to come to end that arbitration case. Eventually, the plan is to put all light rail systems, both LRT and MRT, under the LRTA, because it is their competency.
Yeah, okay. You know, Migs, you can have all these plans and this whole vision and whatever the DOTC under Junabaya or Mar Rojas or Ping De Sus before him, no, have. But to the ordinary man or woman or student or professional or worker on the street or on the train or who takes the MRT, LRT, especially the MRT, what matters really is number one, safety, and number two, conveyance, that we get to where we need to go on time, that we not just hindi lang yung travel time sa train, pero yung gaano katagal bago makaakyat sa platform, as Tonyo was saying, or makasakay sa train, di ba? Yun naman ang importante, di ba? So if DOTC and the government fails in those two simple common sense things, you failed, di ba?
Yeah, sure. But again, we're not looking at this as we're not defining it within a political term. Failure can be, sure, you can tell us today it is a failure. But in 5 years, 6 years, with the plans being implemented, then we can see all the solutions that we want. Meaning we have LRT running all the way to Cavite, where you have a lot of people coming into Metro Manila on a daily basis for work and school. You have an MRT-7 addressing the most highly congested corridor of Bulacan to Metro Manila, of all the Metro Manila paths.
Yeah.
But again, we're not looking at it because we don't finish it within 2016. It's a failure of
No.
government.
I think people understand that, yes, you do need a few years to get it off the ground, and then, syempre, we will not see it overnight or immediately. Hindi ba? But the problem is, as Tonyo was saying, what matters is the experience of yung common tao who will take the train. Di ba?
Yes, that's true.
That's why my question earlier to you is government fulfilling or abdicating on its mandate to provide an efficient mass transit? Kasi you can always say, no, we provided a mass transit system. O yan, may MRT, o may bus, may ganito, ganyan. But
it's not up
efficient
to
is another thing.
up to
Diba? Efficient
standards.
includes safety, efficient includes getting people to where they need to go on time. Because in the end, diba, it's economy that suffers, right?
Yes. It's those two choices, fulfilling or abdicating. I think you can find the middle ground, which is we're not fulfilling those standards, we're not living up to those standards today, but neither are we abdicating and saying, we're not going to do anything about it. We are doing something about it. But again, the real solutions, the real long-term solutions, so that these problems will not be experienced by our children and the next generations, is not an overnight solution.
Yeah, okay. Final words. Tonyo, Cruz first.
I think we should learn from the big mistakes about the MRT-3 and take a look at what the government did to the LRT-1 and its expansion. They privatized it, gave it in a sweetheart deal to Pangilinan and Ayala. The profitable LRT-1, the better maintained LRT-1 under the government, under government control, they privatized it. And now we're seeing government not doing enough, not doing anything meaningful to show to the public that we're doing something. And all that we're hearing for the past few months are proposals for fare hikes for MRT-3. And it's not a good message to the public who've been, for the past few months then, we've been told our economy is growing, we live in a better country. But then, you cannot tell tourists take the MRT. Because that would be a shame, a total shame. So, I think the government bears a heavy responsibility. It's responsibility to provide that service. And it should not only welcome criticism from the public, it must be accountable, starting with the secretary who was presided over an abominable service for the past years. And I think the president should let him go. He could campaign early for the 2016 elections for the Liberal Party. He's the Liberal Party president. He's busy. He's so busy preparing for 2016. So there's no time for the MRT.
Okay, and that's another episode. Thank you, Tonyo. Mig Sagcal, spokesman DOTC.
I was about to say, the topic is really more about delivering the services to the people, and I'd rather not politics take a role in it. I can assure the public that Secretary Abaya is on top of the situation, and we all want to make the solution happen as fast as we can. We are all stakeholders in transportation. It is not a matter of riders alone, government alone. It is everybody working together, trying to figure out the fastest, best solution to it. And as much as we want to do it, again, in a matter of the next 2 years, not all of them will happen, but most of them will for MRT. There are physical limitations. For instance, we can't build the capacity of the train higher than 4 per arrival. But there are other limitations, budgetary limitations, but we are doing what we can. And the goal is not within a single administration. It's not politics. It's for the long-term future of the country.
Okay, how does it feel the riders who are stakeholders are breathing down your necks?
It's pressure to us. It's pressure to us, and we want to deliver the services as fast as we can, as we said. But many of us are riders as well.
Okay, all right, thank you very much, Mig Sagcal. Dr. Primitivo Cal.
Well, the roadmap for transport development for Metro Manila exists. And by the way, it also includes short-term measures. So really, the key then is for our government agencies to implement this roadmap.
After several decades. Dapat lang. Thank you very much to our guests today, Tonyo Cruz, Mig Sagcal, DOTC, and Dr. Primitivo Cal. Thank you very much for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you for watching News.PH. I'm Pia Ontiveros. See you again next Wednesday. Good night.